Hello, everyone. I'm Claudiu Murgan, the host of the Spiritual Inspired podcast. And my guest today is Asil Toksal. Asil is an Austrian-born channel and healer. His work includes group energy healing sessions and the channeling of celestial and angelic guides, as well as working on the energetic alignment of sacred sites and earth energies. The goal of both aspects of this work is to assist in the evolution of consciousness in humanity. He has traveled widely to do this work throughout the United States, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. He has worked with many masters and received initiations by lineage holders of various traditions in South America, North America, and China. In his earlier years, he also served as a CEO and corporate executive in software marketing and communications. 5 years ago, during a moment of deep spiritual experience, Asil connected for the first time to the channeled angelic guides and energies that he works with today. He is also the author of the book Transmission, The Awakening in a Time of Transition. This is just volume one. So Asil, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Claudiu, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for watching today.
I listened to other interviews and I read about you. So I will start with a direct question about how was the transition from the corporate world to the spiritual one? Was it painful?
Yes, it was. And I'll share in a nutshell what that looks like when we are operating in a world, in a reality where we are basically the creation of all the conditioning that we have received as children, and then all the molding that we have received in our education and from society, and all the projections of the people that we have around us. Okay, so they have a certain perception of you, a certain perspective of you. And that perspective holds one in a certain place. And so I was being held in that place for a very long time to adhere to the image that my parents have of me, the image that my friends have of me, my community, and all my business partners, my employees, my clients. Everyone has that perspective, and it puts you and keeps you in place. Now, there is an internal desire to break free from that place. And it's like this desire is fighting through all these projections and these conditionings, right? And it's a fascinating internal conflict at times to break down these layers of identity and letting go of who I was in the past to become an unknown version of me. Who knows what I'm going to be if I follow this internal desire to outgrow this role that I've been playing. And so it is a bit of an identity loss. It is a bit of an ego death. It's a bit of a death in the rebirthing process. And I didn't know who I was going to be after that. And I didn't know if my friends are still going to be my friends. I didn't know if my parents are going to approve or not. And it's kind of a deep divine surrender. And I know that many of your viewers have probably done that. I know that you probably have done something of that similar kind, right? As you're smiling on the story that I'm saying. But there is multiple layers to it. And sometimes it starts with, okay, we operate in the matrix of this society, right? And suddenly we want to break free from that matrix, but we can't fully break free because it also provides for all the things that we have, right? Monetary exchange and buying food and paying for electricity and all these things. Very few people can truly go completely off the grid and grow their own food. That's a very rare occurrence currently in society. So we're still intrinsically connected into society, but we don't want to operate in the rules and the terms and that they were established from the industrial age. It's like, no, that doesn't feel right anymore. So what does that new reality look like?
Yes, it's a straight jacket the society puts each of us in, and you have to have a little bit of magic in you, like a Houdini or someone else of that caliber, to release yourself from that jacket. And as you said, the matrix has different layers because one is the family layer, one is the friends layer, and then you really have to transcend every single layer, shed them in order to free yourself. And I think it's a good discussion because Matrix 4 will be released in December. And that will be a very interesting event for a lot of people because some of them choose the red pill, some of them choose the blue pill. Yes. So we'll see if somehow they will, this time around, will look at Matrix and will decide to choose the red pill.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Definitely.
Also, your transformation process was not only at the spiritual level, but at the physical level. And you mentioned that the angels worked with you, or the angelic beings worked with you for about 1.5 years to adjust the body. How exactly did you or your physical body reacted? How was the main challenge to adapt?
Yeah, so that's an interesting piece. Now, I think we have these incredible machines that we consider the human form. And it's not just obviously the physical aspect of the human form, but also the energetic aspect of the human form. It has so many inactive and dormant elements to it, templates that are already intrinsically integrated, but not active. And so when the guides started to work on me, they said, well, for this role that you're going to be playing, for the energies that are going to be moving through you, we have to start building your body up so it can have this greater capacity to receive and to transmit. And I'm going to play a very specific role. For that, I need to be able to transmit and hold a big field for thousands of people at a time. And that's not for everyone, but there is a way for the body to be able to do that, to receive powerful energy and to transmit that into a field, as well as adjustments on my consciousness to be able to receive the messages without being clouded with my own thoughts and my own ego, right? So how do you keep that vessel clear and deliver this energy and this wisdom, as well as how do you make sure that the vessel does not get drained in the process, right? It stays healthy and it grows even stronger. And I've noticed that a lot of the power that is established within the form, and that's also correlated in different traditions. Like if you go into Taoist or into Buddhist traditions or into some Hinduist traditions, there is, there's a point, an energy point just below the belly button. In Chinese traditions called the Dantian, in Japanese Zen Buddhism, it's the Hara, there's, or the sacral chakra. So that point is like a nuclear reactor. And it is, for most people, it's inactive. And with the right exercises, with the right practice, as well as with the right guidance, that reactor can be activated. And when it's active, it, in my case, you'll see in some of my transmissions, there's like these contractions that are happening in this fast breathing. And these contractions are like starting that engine, right? Starting that reactor. And once it starts, it basically can receive the energy of the earth and the energy of celestial planes and combine those into an energy for this earthly plane. And so that process took a long time. It's still going on in some ways because there's many layers to that activation. but that is the tremendous power that we all have in our systems. And it gives more than just spiritual energy. It gives vitality, it gives sexual energy, it gives well-being, healing powers. I've noticed that I heal, like even when I cut myself, I heal much faster than I used to. Like it goes very quickly. And also physical injuries, if I have an injury from hiking or so, it heals much faster. It can go overnight sometimes. I think this is the intrinsic potential that we have inside, that the guides were like, we need to activate this so that you can serve in this particular way.
Interesting. And I know you're a seeker, and after you sold your company, you felt some emptiness inside you, and you started looking for a different objective in your life, different goal which will fulfill you. And even if you're a seeker, I'm sure you didn't raise your hand and say, pick me, pick me. Did you ask the angelic beings, why were you the chosen one?
Well, let me tell you this. They approached me and they said that I have worked hard to get to this place of being in service and being a vessel. And they said that now I'm ready to serve. And I thought, okay, this is a little scary. I don't know who you guys are and why is this happening? And well, it turns out that a very long time ago, like 3,000 years ago, in a human lifetime, I reached a certain point where I was in communication with these guides. And that's when I proclaimed that I will be serving when the time has come in humanity's evolutionary stage. I'll be serving in this particular role. And that commitment, they were waiting for me to be ready to hear again and to be ready to make the space in my life to serve again. Does that make sense?
Yes, completely. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think we all have to make that space at one point in time and start listening and listening deeper. That's for sure. And because we mentioned the increased consciousness, did the either Raphael or Emmanuel mention anything about what will happen if we don't bring ourselves to a higher level of consciousness sooner rather than later?
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of timelines that are possible, right? And there is a timeline that the guides are pushing for. It's the timeline of humanity's ascension process and the evolution of humanity from a material consciousness to a non-material consciousness. And what I see is going on is that there is almost like a timeline conflict or battle. Is like the one timeline is the one of evolution and awakening. The other timeline is resisting evolution and destroying ourselves and the planet before that happens, right? So it's kind of like competing timelines, and we are in a place where we want humanity to evolve, to mature as a consciousness, to start acting responsibly on this planet and impacting the planet and all living beings on this planet positively, making the right choices, and at the same time evolving as a consciousness to be ready for a non-material existence. So that's what I'm seeing, and that's what the guides are sharing with us. Now, is everyone ready for it? Probably not. Are many proclaiming that they're ready? Yes. And are many people living that readiness? It's also not there yet. So I think we are still in the early stages of this ascension process. and we are growing fast. At the same time, this world is changing fast too.
Yes. And do you think that those pushing a certain narrative are willing to destroy the earth and themselves at the same time, unless they get what they want, unless they reach the goal they are pushing right now?
There are definitely many forces at play. I would say still humanity has an aspect of free will and free choice, right? The free will of humanity will always be a prime directive of this reality. So if we choose to destroy the earth, it's still our choice. We're making that choice, right?
Mm.
If we choose to prioritize profits and wealth, and wealth in the sense of capitalism, extraction from the earth as well as from society, if we choose that path, it's still our choice. It's still our will driving it, right? So as our consciousness matures, our choices start to adapt. And that is what the guides are telling us is this most significant thing, is the evolution and the self-realization of the individual, because then the individual will start to make better choices. Does that make sense?
Yes, completely. Yes, for sure. And you mentioned extraction and the way we treat the earth, and we are all aware that at least for the last 20 years, there's a lot of a big push to revert climate change, and there are presidents and prime ministers and important investors and all kind of bodies out there screaming out loud that something must be done. But at the same time, they are aware that there are free energy devices which were built 100 years ago and then suppressed. So there is a lot of hypocrisy out there on the government side and the important figures side. So it's just empty words from coming from them. How do you see overcoming this bottleneck?
I had a conversation with a fairly high level philanthropist that works in climate change. And he said he's propagating a lot of big solutions to make these solutions available to humanity, because a lot of solutions are already there.
Yes.
And I said to him, I said, it's going to take a lot more than money and solutions to make these changes applicable at scale to all of humanity. It's going to take a shift of consciousness. It's going to take a maturity of consciousness to take solutions that we have and to know that we have no other way but to apply the solutions for a better life on Earth, for the sake of Earth and for the sake of humanity and for the sake of all living beings on this planet. But that's a consciousness evolution. And yes, of course, there is like technologies available and there is incredible monetary resources being made available. But then you see leaders still making different choices. And you're wondering, how is that still not aligned with what the greater population wants, right? And I think that the greater population of humanity is becoming ready and vocal about what they want. And if the leaders are not, according to the general population, applying these needs and these wants of the greater population, then they won't be leaders much longer. That's the way I see it, because leaders are chosen and it's going to be bringing a big shift. I see a lot more younger leadership coming into place within humanity. I see more like tribal leadership almost coming into place. like circles of tribal leaders that will decide for certain areas, regions, not as much countries on country level. It's more like region level by people of common consciousness level. Does that make sense?
Yes, I mean, this is a theme which I heard from at least 4 or 5 of my guests, and they all refer to smaller communities which will take care of themselves. They don't need outside leadership or guidance or anything like that. And I'm sure that this will take place very soon. And also the increased level of consciousness. The more I listen to you and previous guests, I realized that I was guided to write my books about increased consciousness and water and environment, and they fit the times we are living in right now. And I really didn't care to wait 2 or 3 years to get an established publisher to look at my books. I said, these are timely books, these are timely messages. I have to put them out there because even if I change a handful of people, that's a win. So listening to you gives me even more confidence that I have to push this message harder and harder, for sure.
Absolutely. I think the books, then the gatherings, the delivery of wisdom and knowledge, as well as the energetic support and human support, because a lot of people will go through emotions of despair, frustration, disappointment, anger, and sadness. Like all of these emotions are coming up, and the COVID played a big role in bringing all of that stuff to surface, right?
Yes.
It's like I felt it. A lot of people felt it. Society's been feeling it. So what we need in those times is true human compassion, true human kindness, solidarity, and collaboration. Understanding that we're going through this as one human race. And if we want to tackle the challenges of human existence together, then we have to find greater points of collaboration, greater points of love, greater points of exchange and free exchange.
Yes, and I will add non-judgment. Because some of those who believe something else these days might turn around, realize that they were lied to, and they will, come or step into the other side of the equation, by swallowing the red pill. So we don't have to, judge them, just welcome them and be happy that they see the light now.
Yeah, I agree with you. And this is a difficult delivery sometimes that I have to make, is it's not an eye for an eye. It's not like if we were hurt, we're going to hurt back. I don't think that's how it works. We might get short-term and temporarily what we want. We might get a temporary relief, but long-term, it's not the way. And a lot of bigger leaders before me have talked about that. So I'm not taking credit for that message, but I see it very clearly. You can't fight fire with fire. It doesn't work that way. And there is a lot of fire and there's a lot of opposition. One place polarity will create another polarity, and then there will be like these polarities pulling in both directions, creating almost a rupture. And I try to witness it more from a place of observation and from a place of non-judgment. Oh, this is fascinating what's happening in human society and human consciousness right now. It's unique. And maybe not so unique, because if you look at many civilizations, but it's unique at the time that we're in, the amount of humans that are alive, the amount of connectedness that we have across the planet, right? The propagation of communication and messages and all of that. So news travels fast. Changes can be made quickly. We have more technological advancements that are available to us than we have ever had. So what can we do with that if we are not spending all our energy fighting?
Just push out love and push out cooperation, as you said, and try to build bridges.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And, you are on your mission to deliver incredible wisdom to people and bring perspectives to people they may not have heard before, as well as show them who are the people that are in service to humanity and how they can receive from that. I think that's a beautiful service in itself. And we all have our different roles to play. And our service as the nonprofit that we have created to serve humanity is to empower individuals to get to a place of internal alignment as well as connection to celestial planes as existence, as well as connection to this earth and the power that this earth holds. And from that empowered human being comes off an entire new set of values and presence and love.
Yes.
And these individuals are going to be the ones that are going to be needed in this world. That's the way I see it. So we all have our own roles to play. If I would jump into these polarity battles, I would be using my life force, my time, and my energy in battling something while I could be planting seeds for something much greater.
Yes, indeed. And because you mentioned polarization, we can see that in two different aspects of our lives. One is politics, and the other one is religion. And religion is a hot potato, and it's been for hundreds of years. And you mentioned that one of your guides is Raphael, that has an equivalent in other religions such as Islam and Judaism. So this proves to me that no matter how we interpret the holy books of each religion, we come from the same source, and merging back into the source is the ultimate goal of our existence. So why do you think God appeared to different people at different times, dictating similar teachings, but inducing the belief in those individuals and their followers, of course, that that only their path is and faith is the one that matters?
Well, that's a good question. I would say, first of all, I don't take everything that was delivered to us by those that had the direct experience with God or gods. I would not take that at face value. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of things were changed along the way by, I heard this, write this, I heard this, and translate it like this, not like this, and we know things have been translated many times. We know that there's a lot of things that get lost in translation. And just, if you think about it 1,000 years, 2,000 years, a lot of things got lost in translation. So between what really happened and what we are being delivered today, there might be a big gap. So I'd like to stay optimistically skeptical. Yes. That's first thing, right? The other premise I'd like to say is that we are humans, and I'm a proponent of the direct spiritual experience with God and with Source, rather than an indirect experience. So ultimately, I want everyone to have their own direct spiritual experiences and not be told what to do, right? Because a human will have humanistic perspectives, humanistic values, and humanistic agendas on what the human believes is good or is not good for humanity in this current moment in time. Okay?
Yes.
So, what was valid maybe 2,000 years ago may not be valid today from a humanistic perspective, right? But there are certain things in every religion you can find that basically are the high values, that are timeless values. And you can see a red thread across all religions and lineages. You can see those values, right? You can see those shine out. And you know those are like the high frequency deliveries, right? You're like, okay, this is a good one. This is valid for every single person on the planet, right? And then there are certain things that are more like, oh, this is not really relevant for this time and age. It might have been relevant back then, but today's not sure.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah, it's hard for people to comprehend and acknowledge that certain writings have not been changed over 1,000 years or 1,500 years. It's very, very unlikely. And the example I give often is, look, they change the history books in the last 30 years. And there are some, boundaries, and there are some checks in place in order for that to be limited. Can you imagine or understand that these changes took place in 15 or 1,700 years? It's possible, and it's very likely. You have to, get over it. And some people just cannot do that.
Yeah. This is where I think it's so interesting. Because in the work that we do, right, I go into an embodied state and I deliver messages that are not my human messages, but they're channeled messages. And even in those states, it's a bit of a paradox. It's being delivered. It's an indirect experience, but the field, the energetic field that's created is meant to open up individuals themselves so that they can start receiving themselves. That they can start to expand their senses beyond the mind and the bodily senses. They can start to feel and connect and hear guidance themselves. This is the individualized empowerment that I think currently all of humanity is being moved towards. We are being empowered to have this divine connection. We're being empowered to listen to it, and we're being empowered to act accordingly.
And we have to keep working on that as well and accept the message, I assume.
Yeah, there is definitely, I mean, for some people, bless them, I'm not one of them. It happens overnight, right? It's like, boom, it's like lightning strike and suddenly enlightened and get, all the messages right away. For me, it was work. It was in every day I had to face, conditionings and traumas and my ancestry, as well as my own ego construct, my own wounds. I had to face all of that continuously, and I still do. I'm not a perfect human being, and I still look at, oh, how am I limiting myself and my connection to source by holding on to this particular wound or this particular aspect of my being? And this is where we have to walk this path consistently. It's maybe a lifelong path, and it may not be able to be handed over to you, for $9.99. Here you go. It is practice. It is a devotion to life. It is a devotion and dedication to growth and evolution.
Yeah, it's pretty much you work now, and then you hand the baton to yourself in the next life, and you keep going. So, metaphorically speaking, you get the baton and do it over and over again until you reach that level. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, parents hand it over to their kids, and the kids hand it over to their kids, and so on. And it goes on and on and on. And until someone at the end of the generation says, oh, I can end this cycle. I can complete this cycle. It's going to be some work, but I can complete this cycle. And that's where we are. That's where a lot of the people in their generations are seeing, I don't have to continue delivering this to the next generation. I don't have to even play the role anymore that my previous generations wanted me to play.
Yeah.
We are in some ways the breakers of cycles.
I said, let's burn that straight jacket.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
A question that I'm asking myself lately a lot is, or more often is, how can I serve God today? Do you think that this question should be asked more often by each one of us?
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to live life, right? And for me personally, if I go into a place of silence and I start to notice in all the ways I have come out of alignment, in all the ways that I've come out of off track, in this silence, I can observe clearly. It's like, oh, these thought processes are not in alignment with my highest good and my highest service. These emotions still need to be processed. This body needs specific things. And if I get myself into more and more alignment, what happens is service is a natural unfolding of it. Mm-hmm. It's a natural byproduct. It is not something that anyone has to tell me to do. It is not something that I have to write on a piece of paper and put it on the wall. But it's something that naturally evolves out of internal alignment. And for me, I'm a very cerebral person, and I come from a very educational academic background. It was always like, oh, you can figure this out and then you can follow and execute it. But in this evolution of my life, I'm following an organic unfolding of service, an organic unfolding of love, an organic unfold of the desire to be present and to be in alignment. If we follow these organic unfoldings, it is less driven by willpower, because willpower is limited. Willpower, you start in the morning with a lot of willpower. Towards the end of the night, your willpower is limited, right?
Yes.
So that's what I mean by limited. Of course, you have the next day again. But if something is driving organically, it's almost like you look at nature and a plant grows. It's not growing by willpower. It's growing organically, right? And these things inside of us, when they grow organically, it feels effortless. It feels like you have limitless resources to do what you love to do, and it feeds you in return. And so that's where I want us individually to go to. Service, if it comes from that place, yes, Absolutely. Organically let it unfold within you. And all other forms of service are beautiful and nice too. But I always ask for caution and careful observation. What is driving the service? And is parts of your ego or parts of your consciousness that are not of the highest are being served by you being in service, right? Mm-hmm. So those are important things to look at. And I know for a fact that in my early days of service, my ego was being served. And I could pinpoint if my ego didn't get certain aspects from my service, it would be striking. Like, I don't want to serve anymore. Like, this is draining. Why is this not doing what I want it to do? So that's service coming from a place that is not refined yet. Now, I'm not saying it's bad service. It's just not fully refined yet. And I want us to all go to a very refined version of organically driven, unfolding service.
Yes, very interesting nuance you explained to us. Thank you. That's beautiful for sure. I like it. I heard you mentioning that you were jailed while doing your life-changing work in the Middle East. And this aligns with a video I published the other day about modern Inquisition. Nowadays we have the mainstream media, the fact checkers, the politicians and doctors chastising other doctors, energy healers, empaths, and those who speak the truth. So do you feel the same way that we are going through a modern Inquisition right now?
Well, I certainly hope we don't. I certainly hope we don't. I think freedom of speech is a very important thing to have. And we have to, as a society, be able to listen to all perspectives. We have to be able to give it some thought and consideration why this perspective is arising. It's important for an emerging society, for a maturing society, to be able to see different perspectives. And that's not always possible because there are certain agendas at play. There are societal directions that the leaders want to take. And often they don't like opposition. And very clearly, this current generation of society is very outspoken, very verbal, very vocal, right? So, and everyone has strong opinions. People have strong opinions these days. And some of these opinions are educated opinions, and some of those opinions are intuitive opinions, emotional opinions, and that's okay too. That's also a perspective that's like, I don't know what the facts are, and I don't know what the science is, but I don't trust it. That's a valid opinion, right? Because there is something emerging within that does not trust a certain aspect of society. We need to have a look at that in a mature and in a conscious way, rather than dismissing it or trying to squash it, right? Yes. And we've done this squashing and diminishing in the past generations, in the past, versions of civilization. We don't need to do this again. We just need to find ways to listen and observe and come to great levels of realization. Why is this occurring? Now, I hope that all societies will evolve to be able to receive different perspectives that are emerging within humanity. And some societies will go faster and other societies will go slower. And I happen to be within a society where I unintentionally stepped on some toes. And they didn't like that. They saw that as a threat and, convicted me of being a sorcerer. And so there was great learning for me in it, great experiential realizations that I had while being in that place. That's a much longer story. We can fill a whole session about that. But here is what I'll say. A lot of great leaders, a lot of outspoken people that were there to change the status quo have stepped on toes. And many of them have been jailed, banned, or killed for it. I hope that's not us, but I've seen it in the past. Any structure that is based on power and authority will be threatened by anything that is trying to change that structure. If anything is true consistently, it's change, because change is consistently happening, which means those structures cannot stay in power forever. It's not possible. So every human structure is meant to eventually dismantle and change and transform. So that's what I'll say to that.
Yes, and let's say if something intangible is considered sorcery and one is punished for it, the opposite of it is transhumanity. And this is what the new wave and the new buzzword is, that they will like, that the government will like to turn us into transhumans. Do you see that happening into like this generation, or it will take much longer if it will happen?
I would say that there is a lot that will happen in this generation. I see incredible transformational potential in this generation. And I feel like things are moving faster than they have ever moved. So it's like this hockey stick exponential growth that I see in consciousness within humanity. And I feel that we will be witness to tremendous change. And I'm holding really that truth in my being, that we are actually going to see tremendous change. Now, we will also see tremendous challenge. That's a natural byproduct of change, right? But I feel if there is enough of us, Claudiu, and all of you that are watching, if there is enough of us that are holding the greatest light within us, the greatest potential within us, all challenges that we're going to be facing. I believe
Thank
that.
you.
Asil, you just returned from Guatemala a week or so, and you started the Sacred Earth Initiative. How did you find the spirits of the land, the ley lines of the land? Is everything healthy?
Well, we did Guatemala, and then we went on to Costa Rica, and we completed those two countries. As some of you may know, like I've been going to a lot of sacred sites around the world, visited hundreds of sacred sites in dozens of countries, predominantly Middle East, Europe, and now Latin America. This is a guidance that we have received by the guides. They are establishing a new grid on top of the existing grids that were developed by different civilizations, by different star families, and many different, like this network of energy almost like the acupuncture meridians of the earth, the guides are establishing a new grid on top of that, utilizing this existing grid specifically for the essential process of humanity. Now, when I asked why that is necessary, they said there will be so many people around the world that will not have access to consciousness evolution or spiritual evolutionary things like we do. Like, you know, who knows how many people have actually access to YouTube or are able to watch your transmissions, right? So some people just don't have the resources for it. How do we get everyone on this entire planet to have the capacity to reach higher states of consciousness? And that is through that grid that will establish like cell phone towers holding a frequency and a vibration that will lift human consciousness to a higher state. So it's like entire fields on the earth can then be lifted up. I think that's fantastic. It's like the scaled version of doing a meditation together, right? Now energy moves through these entire countries, through these sacred sites to lift consciousness up. That's fascinating. Now, what happens on these in these particular places is very unique because every sacred site has different things going on, right? Some of the places are, you know, homes of like ancient civilizations like the Mayan in Guatemala. So we went to some of these incredible sites, and the channelings that come through are about their connection to star families, their connection once that connection was somehow connected, their connection to earthly spirit beings and establishing these energetic structures and how they got to know and understand what they did. It's super fascinating. And what I go there almost like a little child, you know, almost like an adventurer. And I suddenly get all these inputs from our archaeologists, from the Mayan elder, and from the spirits of the land, and the spirits and the guides that are coming to me. And I get all these flavors of human existence. And it's the most amazing thing to discover humanity in that way, from that spiritual adventure perspective. So we're going to be sharing a lot of that on October 10th, actually. We have a day-long event that we're going to be sharing the travel through Guatemala, as well as some of the things from Costa Rica. There's a full documentary that we're going to premiere on 10/10. And then we're going to do a transmission, as well as have our Mayan elder and our archaeologist on the call for them to share their experiences, because they experienced first time what I do. And it was kind of interesting for them too, right? They did not expect that.
Yeah, I watched some of your transmissions from Guatemala, quite interesting and powerful, especially the ones in the caves and the cenotes, and quite unique. Yes, quite unique.
Fascinating. It's like, you know, honestly, Claudio, if it was up to me, the human Asil, I would probably not have gone to some of the places that I've gone to, because I've gone to like war zones. I've gone to Iraq, I've gone to Iran, I've gone to Syria, I've gone to places where there's conflict, I've gone to places where there has been genocide and the space needed to be cleared. I would normally not go to these places if it was just, but when the guides say you have to go, it's like, okay, you know, we'll go. And when I go, it is like an entire new world opens up for me, a new connection, a new perspective and understanding of reality, a new perspective and understanding of humanity, of the human experience itself. So this is why we are establishing the Sacred Earth Initiative, where we are not just showing people what we're doing, but we're also training people to do the same thing. training people to have an intrinsic connection to our history and to our ancestry, training people to have a connection to the spirits of the land, as well as the land itself and this earth itself, because we have lost that connection somewhere along the way.
Yes. And you also are aware that when you go to these places, you are protected because you trust your guides. They won't tell you to go into a zone or you're might lose your life. So you are protected, that's for sure.
Yes, we are protected. We believe that we're protected, and we've seen that we're protected so many times in the ways everything comes together perfectly, smooth rides. And still, from a human perspective, there's always that slight little voice that comes in as a doubt and says, but what if? But what if this? What if that? So I'm okay risking my life, but I get a little bit edgy when it's like my team.
Yes.
Like, okay, I risk my life, that's okay. But am I okay with them risking their lives? What if something happens to them and I have to talk to their families afterwards, right? It's like, it feels sometimes like a big responsibility. And that's when I have to find a deeper level of trust and surrender as well on behalf of them.
Yes. And I experienced how it is to let go of completely the handle you are just, holding into with no desperation. If you just let it go and trust the source, good things will happen. And we went through that experience recently as a family, and I'm still trusting the message, and I'm not looking back. No bad feelings. So I'm still, again, looking ahead for the next challenge and experience.
That's beautiful and very inspirational, Claudio. We lead by example. Our trust in the divine, our surrender to our missions and our devotion inspires other people to be able to do the same.
Yes. Thank you. How much the plant medicine experience change you up to the moment where the angelic guides reach out to you?
I think that plant medicines carry a lot of wisdom, and plant medicines are definitely on the rise. There's no doubt about it. And plant medicines have been utilized for many generations before in many different civilizations before. In fact, we believe that a lot of the world religions were impacted by plant medicines. So yes. It has been an intrinsic aspect of human culture that has unfortunately also gotten a lot of stigma and bad reputation, understandably so. I would say that everything that we're doing as humans evolving quickly is going to be possible without plant medicines. I believe that. Because the energy levels are rising, and so we can tap into these energy streams that are really intensified to get the same levels of transformational experience that we would normally have with plant medicines. I truly believe that. And I'm also a supporter that plant medicines done in the right context with the right guidance can be an incredible factor for evolution. But it's also, one of the teachers I used to work with, he used to say, hold on tight. And he really meant it because, it goes fast and there's an intense roller coaster ride at times. So it's not for everyone. Plant medicines are not for everyone. Some people are too young to do it. Some people are potentially too old to do it. Some people are physically too fragile or mentally or emotionally too fragile to do it. It's a little too intense. So there are many other ways to go about consciousness and spiritual evolution than plant medicine. So That's what I would say to that.
Yes, it has to be done in a responsible way, as you said it. I won't do it with a source I don't trust, and has to be recommended, and has to be a safe environment, you know, and they should know what they are doing. That's for sure. That's for sure. Asil, what programs do you run these days that can help people with increasing their consciousness, awareness, become better human beings? And then we can touch a little bit on your book.
Beautiful. So we have, as an organization, we serve this society with currently two particular pathways. One is the pathway of becoming a pillar of light. A pillar of light is an individual that is aligned, that is connected to this earth and connected to spirit, and comes from a place of presence, comes from a place of service. Pillar of light, we have different programs that lead through multiple levels, everything directed by the guides. And Pillars of Light is a 4-part program, as well as another program that's a Sacred Earth Practitioner program. So these two programs go in parallel, but they also intersect. And we have our first level of Sacred Earth Practitioners coming up in October 12th, right after the day-long event. That's an 8-day program. And then we have what we call the Foundations course. The Foundations course is for both Pillars of Light as well as for Sacred Earth practitioners. In this Foundations course, in these 4 weeks, people go through a major transformation, both on a mental, emotional, physical, energetic level. And we believe this Foundations course establishes a new foundation within all of us, within everyone that's joining, to become a better and higher potential version of themselves. So people unlock gifts. People unlock parts of themselves that still need healing and transformation. And we do that in a safe container. We do that with a lot of trained facilitators, and we do that with the guides that are holding that space. So it's beautiful and powerful, and at times a devotional aspect of going this path. This foundational course will be in November, and we will have details for the foundational course coming up soon on our website. But the Sacred Earth training is open and available for everyone to join already.
And are these in-person sessions or virtual?
They are, due to the fact that our community is global. They are online, and we also will do more and more in-person events where people can join in person if they are close by, or they'll join remotely. And in person we just have more limitations. So we did a retreat in Costa Rica with about 70 people in person and about 3,000 people online. So that is the way it's going to be also in the future, where a portion of the people can experience it in person and a portion will be experiencing it virtually.
Yeah. So I may join you next time when you come to Costa Rica, or if you decide to do anything in Panama, I'm here, I'll be close by.
Panama is on our list for Latin America sacred sites.
Nice.
It's actually, we may first do Belize in Mexico, okay. But Panama is on the list. Panama and Colombia are, if we go further south, those are the next ones.
Yeah, Mexico is powerful, and the same Belize has some important sites. I didn't visit all of them, but I know of them, and they are quite powerful as well.
Beautiful. I'd love to collaborate and see what we can do in Panama.
Yes, I connected with some local healers and a group which organizes not ayahuasca but a different type of plant medicine ceremonies. So I'm waiting for the green light to see when they're gonna hold the next one and join them.
Fascinating, beautiful. Well, I'm specifically excited about the Mayan sites that still exist, or the previous civilizations that have lived in Panama, and the sites that they have established, because I think there is a lot of sacred places in Panama.
Yeah, and Kuna is the one of their indigenous cultures, and we'll try to visit one of their islands in January. It's not easy to get there. You have to be invited. At least this is what I heard. And we connected with one Kuna person when we traveled to the west part of the country. So pretty much we got the invitation. I have to maintain the contact, and when the time comes, just go there.
That's exciting. Claudiu, you're coming with us. Are you taking us on this journey?
Yeah, more than welcome. Thank you. Let's talk about your book. That's just volume 1. How many more volumes?
Well, there will be at least 2 more volumes that will be coming out. We think the next volume is going to be a lot of the channelings that came with and from Elohim. So that's going to be an interesting book on what they're delivering with regards to pillars of light, as well as the regards to Sacred Earth, this initiative around Sacred Earth. The next 2 volumes that we think are going to be emerging. The next one is going to be evolution. The topic is going to be evolution. The evolutionary stage that we're going through as humanity and what that means for us. And the third one is probably going to be called Ascension. So it's going to be around the ascension process, what that means and what that looks like, and how we're going to be able to transform as humanity.
Beautiful. So we will go, I mean, I will keep an eye on the next volumes, and I will let my subscribers know that the next volume was published so they can look into it. I'd like to ask you if you ever channeled anything about water, if your guides mention the importance of water, and anything in particular was mentioned to you.
Yes, definitely. So water is such a significant aspect of this life that we live here on this planet, and for the balance of this planet. And it's a source of life, in fact. So there was channelings done in Guatemala, especially by the cenotes, and Creta Azul specifically, where I had to do a channeling in the water itself, because we didn't have the pier that we hoped to have where I could sit on. It was underwater, so I had to go into the water to do the channeling. And some of the messages that are coming from the guides about the importance of water and water sources is so profound that it feels like, general wisdom that we all have heard before, but the way it's delivered and the energy by which it's delivered, it hits a spot in so many within our community, and hopefully within your audience, that when we start to understand how important water is, when we start to understand how important the gifts of this beautiful earth are, then we start to develop a greater gratitude rather than a sense of entitlement for the gifts that we receive. And we start to treat things that we're grateful for very differently, right? Than the things that we take for granted. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Are you allowed to or helped to travel to other dimensions? Was it necessary for you?
I travel a lot to other dimensions, quite a lot, quite significantly a lot. Very often it has something to do with me in my process getting specific gifts by certain beings or certain civilizations in different planes of existence, different dimensions. And if I can reach them, and if I can be, basically my guides will take me to these places, and I would then be worked on, and I would be delivered something, and I would come back. And it's really all coming to, it's not for entertainment, even though it's entertaining. It is for me to receive certain elements in order to be in greater service here. That's what the purpose is. Sometimes I find that in the spiritual communities, we spend a lot of time thinking and conspiring about these other civilizations or other dimensions, and we spend way too much time there. And here we have an Earth and a civilization, a humanity that's like falling apart. Like, come on, guys. Like, if you're gonna get wisdom from there, then bring it here and integrate it and apply it.
Yes. Yeah.
So that we can truly impact the life that we're living here. That is an incredible life in this dimension. Let's fuel it. Let's nourish it. Let's grow together. And let's learn from the mistakes from other dimensions. Let's learn from our own mistakes. And let's learn from the ways other dimensions, other civilizations have succeeded.
Yes, indeed. Asil, we are approaching the end of the interview. Any final thoughts?
Well, let me see. The one thing that comes through is that we are divine beings. We are the result of the divine love of creation. That everything that we have done and everything that we're doing is divine by definition. And that we always have a choice. That we always have the free will to apply our gifts, our life force, and our presence to whatever we choose to apply it to. That we are not just subjected to our reality, that we're not the victims of our lives. That we are truly supported, guided, and loved so that we can become the greatest version of ourselves, an empowered version of ourselves.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
Empowerment is very important. Thank you very much for the beautiful and positive message. Thank you. Thank you.
It's really important to keep that perspective alive within us, especially when it's challenging.
Yes, indeed. Once again, thank you very much for your time and for the wisdom you shared with us today.
Thank you so much, Claudiu.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching.
And to my viewers, thank you for watching it. Like it, share it. You can support me on patreon.com/Claudiu Murgan. Visit my website to download a free copy of my book, my first book. And until next time, love and gratitude.